Welcome to the Penny Bloom Podcast. Ain't another place that has got more bombast. Romp past your mom, dad's listening to Tomcats. Talking everything that make you sad. We don't want that. We're here to make you smile. Put your mind at ease. Peace, love, and bloom, and always praise Keanu Reeves. This what we about. This some weeding now. We'll talk until we can't no more, and then we peacing out. Alright, let's go. Penny Bloom Podcast. It's the Penny Bloom Podcast. Penny Bloom Podcast. It's the Penny Bloom Podcast. Penny Bloom Podcast. Penny Bloom Podcast. Hello everybody and welcome in to another episode of the Penny Bloom Podcast. It is I, Colton Robertson, and today we continue our 52-year journey through film. And I am joined by Joseph George. What's up, homie?
Oh, what up, what up? Always a pleasure to be here.
Oh, and it's always a pleasure to have you. As I said, this is our 52-year journey through film. We've gone all the way through the 70s, all the way through the 80s, all the way through the 90s, week by week, all the way through the 2000s, and it has led us here, concluding yet another decade with 2009's Avatar, the highest grossing film of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And I can semi-proudly say this is a fun movie for me because I'd never seen it. The highest grossing movie of all time was one that I had never watched prior to last night. And there came a point in time around like 2016 or 17 where I went, you know what? I won't watch Avatar. just because I was like, I haven't. And it seems like everyone has, and I never had interest in it. You know, I don't know what it was that just like never pulled me in. But I was always like, I was 9 when it came out, so it wasn't like I was like, I gotta go see Avatar in theaters. You know, it's whatever my parents are gonna take me to see that I'll end up fucking seeing. You know what I'm saying? And I'm glad I have now. You know, I'm glad I have it in my repertoire now. It's certainly an interesting film, and I'm excited to talk about it today.
Do you know, when it comes to like the top grossing aspect, is the number that's on there adjusted for like from 2009 to now, or is that like what it made in 2009 as well? Like,
it's what it's made to this point.
I see.
Because there's been re-releases.
Fair. I just didn't know. I mean, because the fact that it just beats Endgame is nuts. Like, it's crazy to me that this movie like can beat something that had so much history going into it. Like, it was like one of like the most like people needed to go see this movie. You know, like Endgame, and like this is just the very beginning of. It was really
interesting. You know, Endgame did pass it.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, like James Cameron drafted a letter, wrote to the. I think it was the fucking Russo brothers, like, congratulations on having the highest grossing movie of all time. He should have put for a little, because I'm about to re-release Avatar. So he put Avatar back out in theaters. It climbed above it again, and it's like, well, that's that. And it's going to get re-released, awesome. Or it's been re-released again last Friday.
And probably again come September.
Yeah.
I wonder, like, because right now I'm looking at the numbers, it's about 500 million above Endgame, which is, you know, Avatar made $2.8 billion, and then Endgame made 2.7, almost. Well, oh, never mind, my math is a little off. $50 million above, not 500.
I was like, oh my god, it re-released and grossed 500 million. There are movies that don't even make that on original release.
Sorry, 50 million.
Okay, that makes me feel a lot better about it.
But I mean, that's nuts. And then the next closest after Endgame is Titanic with 2.2 billion.
Another James Cameron.
Yeah,
that man has the bag. At this point, but let's lay the groundwork for the people. This is Avatar, released on December 18th, 2009, written and directed by James Cameron. And it's interesting, you know, this is our third stop on the James Cameron train. And in this 52-year journey through film. We've covered the Terminator and we've covered Aliens. Both way back in the 80s, both back in the month of April, actually. So it's been a few months since we last discussed some James Cameron flicks, but I'm pretty confident when I say that this was his best visual story. You know, I think I overall enjoy Aliens more. I think there's something there that ultimately ends up hitting a little harder for me, but not to take away from Avatar. This movie was exceptionally well done.
Yeah, I mean, we got Sigourney Weaver, you know, got
her back,
kind of cool. And I was wondering if there was a line where someone says like, "You're the man, Doc," you know, to her. And I wonder if that was a subtle like Aliens kind of like, you know, because I think I can't remember if they did refer to her as like, she's like the manliest man out of all of us, or like something like, you know, like something like that. I think like whenever
there's a vibe there for sure. You know, Sigourney Weaver carries this air of just like
badassery,
respectability. Like you're like, I gotta listen to her. She's absolutely awesome, and she's absolutely awesome in this movie. You know, like as I was watching it,
where's my goddamn cigarette? What's wrong with this picture? You know, like she instantly comes out like that. So
I loved it. And you know, if like there was any obvious award to be given out for this decade for me, it was Best Supporting Actress for Sigourney Weaver. I thought she did absolutely fucking awesome in this role. I really, really enjoyed it. But you know, I was worried they were gonna like and she did prioritize science above all else ultimately. You know, which less so than the military, but was still like less so than the military was fucked up, but was still a little like you looked out for the people, but only because you needed to study them.
Yeah, like even like whenever she's being taken, you know, like like she's dying and like she needed help, she's like, I need to take some samples. You know, that's what she says instead of like, oh my God, I'm here, you know, or whatever. Right. I guess her intentions were more, you know.
Oh yeah. Certain, there's these layers to the things, you know. We start this movie with Jake Sully, who is stepping in for his deceased brother, who actually studied and did all the stuff for this mission, was ready to go undercover. But this guy is being kind of used, Jake Sully, you know, to a certain extent. You know, you see her, or you see him meet with his commanding officer and him be like, well, you're going to report back to me. And if you get me what I want, I can get you your legs back. Oh, and by the way, I have the means to make that happen, no matter what. But only if you do this for me will you get your legs back.
I could give it to you right now and make your life a whole lot easier, and you could do my job that I want you to a whole lot easier, but not until you give me exactly what I want will I give that to you. Yeah, like they did a great job of making you hate the military and this corporation. Offer it. Like, and that's the thing that like got me is that like this is a company that's like, dude, this isn't like government or whatever. This is just a company that's trying to do the best they can for their shareholders. You know, like what do shareholders hate?
Same shit in Terminator with Skynet. It was the same shit in Aliens.
Yeah, like what do shareholders hate more than bad press? It's their quarterly, you know, earnings or blah blah blah. And it's like, oh fuck, you can't, like, damn. And then like every time that I don't know, there was like one of the moments that I loved, and whenever I was watching this for like the first time, I'm like, oh, maybe this is where they get it, is whenever Sigourney Weaver is like explaining to them like their neural network and like how everything's connected, and like that's not where the money is. You know, you think your money's in unobtainium, blah blah blah, but like no, it's like this beautiful, it's the whole planet, like that. It's like and you know, you just see them like, what have you been smoking? You know, that's instantly what they say. They have to like,
God, it was the worst. I fucking hated those guys, man. Every single shitty thing
Mm.
in movies is capitalists ignoring scientists.
Don't Look Up.
Don't look up real life.
Jurassic
All
Park.
sorts of shit. This is the launching off point for all sorts of disastrous occasions. And, through the first 45 minutes of this movie, we have, and even to an extent throughout the movie, I had to remind myself what I was liking about the movie, because I felt like, even though they presented this message of anti-imperialism, against, we got the militaristic entity invading an indigenous land and the people defending their land from said invaders. Native people defending their land from invaders. That's an idea I can absolutely get behind and want to see unfold. My issue came when they don't center the people. They center Jake Sully's struggle in trying to help the people. And it felt a little weird to me at points. I was like, it felt like it should have been some of the things Jake Sully does. He should have been standing alongside Zoe Saldana's character as she does them. He shouldn't have been the one who's like, the Skywalkers want to come and kill us. Yeah. Bro, you are a Skywalker.
Yeah. It felt weird every time that he, even though he went through the ceremony and everything, he became one of them. It felt weird every time he said, brother, or
and us, and
us,
and
the people. And I was just I don't know, man.
I think he can be introduced into the tribe of sorts, and they can do all these ceremonies and stuff. But in doing that, he needs, you're telling me all of these Na'vi, they have leaders that are expressly laid before us. They show us all of them. They're all very much alive when Jake Sully steps up. And it's I don't know. It feels like he should have been maybe a part of a council with them and told them so this is what they're doing. Double agent it, not take over as leader of sorts. It felt weird. It felt white saviory, and I didn't really love it. But nevertheless, I think the story they spun ended up working pretty well.
And I mean,
overall,
it would I think would have made a lot more sense in my mind is at the very end, do they finally accept him? Even whenever he rides, is it Toruk? Even when he comes in on Toruk, they're all oh shit. Okay. Maybe that would have been the moment where they could have been sure. But they followed I felt what would have been the most made the most sense is whenever he left his old body and was now just, in the Na'vi body, and that's it. He's no longer a human anymore, really. Maybe that's the point where they're you know what? Okay, this dude's for real. He is one of us now,
right.
Legitimately. But
I have to remind myself, this is a sci-fi movie. And that's why they can get away with something like this. The inhabiting the body of a native person by a white man. It feels weird. Ultimately being I got it from a Jake Sully standpoint. I can walk in this body. I can run. I can live. I can jump. I can do all of this when I'm in this body. And that's got to be tempting. But it almost feels like his wanting to be in a part of the crew is a product of that.
True.
It's
and I mean, even the corporation dude, I forgot, Parker Selfridge, character's name. Even he legitimately states it. He's what, isn't the whole point of this science project so that you can look like them, talk like them, so that you can convince them to leave? That's the whole reason they started this. Right. It's not for the science, it's to get
so
them
that
to
you
leave.
Can get them out of there so we can mine unobtainium.
Yeah. And And so, Jake knew that from the very beginning, and he tells them at the end, he's like, yeah, I knew that this would happen from the very beginning.
All
and
too late.
Yeah. If he really cared about the people, maybe like he would have told them that very important piece of information a little earlier. I guess they wouldn't have trusted him yet, and maybe that's what he was holding off for. But like maybe that makes them trust him more in saying like, hey, my own race is doing this and I am going against them. I'm telling you this information they don't want me to tell you.
And it should he should have told them much earlier. I think he should have. But like, and then I look at the movie and there's like an hour and 15 minutes left when he tells them. But like, there should have been, it should have came a lot earlier. He knew he was falling for Zoe Saldana's character much earlier in the movie. He knew how much he loved being here as compared to the real world. There's a point early on in the movie where he's like there's coming a point where that feels like the real world and this feels fake. Like I don't even know who I am anymore. And it's like it feels like that's the point.
Yeah.
That's like 45 minutes into the movie.
Yeah, he comes in this very brute Marine, and he's like, "You're never not a Marine. You whatever happens to you, you keep that attitude, blah, blah, blah." And then like you hear him say, I don't know who I am anymore. This is my life now. Like my reality is becoming the dream and my dream is becoming my reality, and like, I don't know, like beautiful character development there, could have just been worked on a little bit more. And like,
oh yeah. Like that's the thing is it's extremely well intentioned, like there is, it's not from a place of like, we expressly want the white man to be the one who saves them. Yeah. Like that's not what happened with James Cameron's writing of this movie. No, it was just it was a product of him being a white man writing this script.
I guess frame this in real world terms. It's like Christopher Columbus coming over to the United States and being like, having some way to put himself into a Native American's body and being like, hey, leave this land or else we will kill you and take everything from you. Like that's what this is in human terms, which like never crossed my mind.
That's why it has to be blue aliens on a different planet, because like as I'm watching it, I'm like, man, if this is in any real world context, this movie is fucking panned. Like it's like this should not have happened. It should not have been made. And so, like, that has to be considered when it comes to, like, a metaphorical context, like, that is the point of this movie, is for you to think about real-world imperialism and colonialism and the seizing of native lands and for the gain of resources, the exploitation of native lands. And
I guess for the movie, they probably, like, the big events that they knew needed to happen was a war. Like, I think they needed a war for their action sequence, like they needed that for the movie. And maybe that's why they had Jake hold off for a while, is because they wanted it to escalate to this point. I mean, like, I don't know.
I personally don't like, I am all in all okay with the story as it unfolds. I just am not a huge fan of the treatment of Jake Sully's character. Like everyone around him, I think they pretty much nailed the archetypes, like what they were trying to do. Like my only complaints come when like whenever he tells them like he should sit down with the leaders, Zoe Saldana's father and her mother, and go, so here's what's happening. Tell your people we need to do something. Instead of standing before them and being like, the Skywalkers are coming. We need to go. I don't know. It's just like he seizes the opportunity to do it.
And I guess he only had an hour to do so. Like they were already on their way. It's like, we obviously want these things to happen, but like the company and the military is kind of forcing his hand in a way.
I can see that for sure.
But like, could have been very easy for him to be like, yo, I can't communicate with your people as well as you can. Let me just take you aside, not freak everyone out right away.
There's no reason for me to think I know better.
Yeah.
And like that's ultimately where like I start to like lose steam, is that it feels like it's coming from a place of like, y'all need to listen to me. And they objectively do. They need to hear what he has to say. It's just it comes from a weird place of where he's like it just feels like he seems to think he knows better. And he knows what's coming, which so like he does know. He just needed to play more the double agent thing, not reporting back, and then he gave them everything they needed.
Yeah.
Everything. They didn't need anything more from him.
The one thing, like, at the very end, whenever they like transfer his body over and he wakes up, like it's a very cool ending, and like, you know,
very cool. Like it's awesome. Like, oh yes, there's absolutely going to be more avatars.
After Dr. Augustine goes through this, why wasn't Jake like, hey, we should do this with me so that they can't do anything to me? You know, like, should it, like, I don't know. Like, what, like, like that was my only thing, is like, why don't you just do that right now? Like your hut is like a little bit away from this exact location. Like you are like not that, you are a little flight away, you know, like minutes away from this. I guess it was
like a last resort
war and everything. But like, yeah, I don't know. I guess like this is the jump off point. You know, we are getting 4 movies, like at least. Is it 4 more? Like they're going up to 5, or is
5?
it?
There's supposed to be 5 Avatar movies, and it's been rumored that like they'll be like anthology films. Like they're not necessarily connected, but they're all within the same universe. You know what I'm saying? With the same people, the Na'vi. But
and maybe they twist it in a way where, because the way I was thinking is like maybe these, you know, the 5 people in history that have gotten to the point that Jake got to, you know, like maybe their souls are connected in a way to where it's like a reincarnation sort of thing. And like, that's why like they instantly call him, I forgot what the name for Ryder, like, Toruk something, like the writer of Toruk, basically.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll spin it in a way to be like, he's just like reincarnated, you know, it's like the same energy, the same soul, you know, stuff like that. And maybe that it's some, you know, something, but like he did come from Earth and he was just a Marine. And I don't know.
He was just like, that's my thing, is that like, the idea that this human man would have any sort of soulful tie to the land that they have, some weird messaging.
What's is it what's their deity, like their god called? Iwa?
Etia? Or, I cannot remember exactly.
And I mean, I guess like we have a lot more to go, you know, like there's a lot of stuff that we just don't know. Like, I mean, Sigourney Weaver, like when she was dying, you know, she was like, I'm with her. She is real, you know, like, so you get that. And then Jake goes through the same exact experience. He has to go through, you know, has to go, whatever their verbiage was. Basically, she was saying like, you need to die and then come back in order for this to work, I think is like what they were getting at. Like you need to go through the eye or something, you know, like that, and then return. So like Jake seemingly has met with, you know, their god and everything. And like, we will probably learn a whole lot more of how it works. But like, he's instantly like known as like, you have a good heart, and like the little soul, I forget what everything's called, but those little white butterfly-esque, you know,
those are
like,
dope.
Yeah. And they, you know, one of like my favorite like shots is just like when they're all over his body. And it just shows like the both of them standing there like on top of trees. It's just so beautiful. But maybe like, you know, maybe they see the future in some sort of way, you know, like they're not living in just the present, in the now. They know that Jake will be the one to reunite everyone and everything. So that's why they choose him, sort of thing. I don't know. Like, I guess these next movies could frame this one in a better light and like show some things that are better. I don't know. But, I mean, it is kind of weird whenever you do frame it in that lens that like,
well, like this monologue. The Sky people have sent us a message that they can take whatever they want, that no one can stop them. Well, we will send them a message. You ride out as fast as the wind can carry you. You tell the other clans to come. Tell them Taruk Makto calls to them. You fly now with me, my brothers, sisters, and we will show the sky people that they cannot take whatever they want, and that this is our land. I don't know, man. I don't know, Chief. It just, like, that monologue works so much better coming from Zoe Saldana's character. You know, like, it just does. For me, you know, and I think it could have been, like, based off a conversation they had seconds before that. Like, he relays this information to her. He tells her this stuff, and then she's like, you see what they've done? You know, like, it just makes so much more sense for her to be the one who rises up and is like, y'all need to listen.
Damn. Yeah. Yeah, like, I mean, this was kind of my first true watch of this movie, because the last time I did watch it, I was probably 12 or 13 years old. Right. So, like, I saw big military guys, and I'm like, oh, like, that dude looks cool. He has so cool scars on his head, you know, like, True. And I'm like, I'm not thinking of him as, like, the instant enemy, like, of this movie.
Oh, yeah.
But, like, watching it now, you know, I'd say that this is my first true watch of the movie, and, like, yeah.
Through a critical lens.
Yeah. And, yeah, I mean, it's visually great. The story is amazing. Like, they're
it is an epic narrative. That's like, that is really cool. Like, and it does have this sort of like a Matrixy chosen one sort of feel to it. It's just weird who the chosen one is.
Yeah.
I think the narrative they've spun is awesome. It's just weird. It's just weird the way it plays out.
I guess I'm looking at these other awards here, and set design. I feel like Avatar has to be in here, just for the VFX and everything that it, you know, kind of set in place. But that means we have to get rid of one of our nominations here. I think we'll silently remove one. And just slide them in there.
I think so.
But I was wondering if you had any other nominations you were wanting to make.
Yeah, I think that Zoe Saldana deserves a Best Actress nod, because I'm gonna tell you, you know, this is Gamora. You know, we love Zoe Saldana. I was wondering to myself while watching this if it was 100% CG or if it was motion capture. And Zoe Saldana is so talented that I knew she was motion capturing her character. That's what let me know, oh, this is motion capture, is the way she did things. Because I was like, oh, that's Gamora. The way she moved her hands and stuff. I was like, you know what? Respect out the ass for Zoe Saldana's performance, because it's so clearly bled through.
It is insane that, like, whenever you think of what the actors and actresses have to do here, they're on a completely blue screen set. They're not seeing any of this at all. They're just acting in the moment. They're told, hey, you're on this massive 500-foot tree. You're up here. You're about to, like, I don't know, you're having just, like, they're told these things. They don't see it. You know, only the director has seen it through their camera. And, like, it's a very, very fudgy version of it. It's not, like, finished and finalized. It's just a very, like, video game-esque version. So, like, they're not seeing any of this, and they're just having to act through it, which is nuts. And yeah, like, you could just tell, like, the facial movements too. Like, whenever like they hiss, you know, or like, you know, like, and just like seeing like all the emotion and like expression, like it you can tell it's not just CG.
I think it was the part where Jake confesses, like, I knew this was coming, and she can't even speak. She's so angry, and she just kind of like moves her arms around, and I was like, that's Zoe Saldana. Like, I see it. It's so crazy because she is a fucking blue alien in this movie that is CG'd. But it just came through so effectively. So I had to give Zoe Saldana the nod there. Sam Worthington as Jake Sully was solid, but I don't think he's Best Actor nod worthy amongst those other candidates that we have here.
Mm.
I can't see him quite fitting in. And I mean, there were some great supporting actors, but definitely not enough to overtake any of the best supporting actors we have here. But Sigourney Weaver and Zoe Saldana, those were really the two that did it for me. And the soundtrack killed. I fucking loved the music in this movie.
I guess what costume design is that? I mean, they did kind of have to create a species, but is that really costume design there? You know, like
that's what's interesting is that like it feels like it's
for the human costumes. It's kind of like they're just lab coats and they're just military suits. It's just like, whatever.
So yeah, I had a little bit of a hang up on costume design just because like that's more of a VFX accomplishment as opposed to actual costume design. And I think we can go ahead and throw James Cameron a Best Director nod for this movie. You know, like go ahead and fill out that slot there. But I still sit in a pretty firm place where we have one candidate for Best Writer right now. Like I don't know how we hit 10 movies where we were like 9 of them were not crazy well written. They were just entertaining.
Wow. I mean, because Training Day, we were like, just kind of felt a little weak on the writing side. Gladiator was only till the very end, where
that one will probably end up coming back up as like the other nominees that we'll have to fill out with.
Kill Bill could be up there, but it's not to the level that Slumdog was.
Like that was just so much better written than every other movie this decade, and it's just so painstakingly obvious. But yeah, nevertheless, I think Sigourney Weaver and Zoe Saldana are definitely my nods in terms of the actor and actress categories from this movie. Sam Worthington was solid, you know, like he did good enough. But like even aside from the military man thing he had going on in the first several minutes of the movie, when he first showed up as the Avatar on their lands, like, and he like was like, "Yeah, what's up, punk ass?" I was like, I fucking hate this guy. I was like, and they were going for like a douchey thing where he's going to see some character development, and I get that for sure. But he doesn't change a lot. You know, like any change he goes through, he's forced to go through.
Yeah. I mean, the other people that are up here, like Russell Crowe, you know, as Maximus, Denzel as Alonzo, Denzel as Frank Lucas, DiCaprio as Billy,
Matthew Lillard as Shaggy.
Of course. I mean, it's kind of unfair to put him there, you know, like obviously, like if Scooby-Doo could be in every category and like they'd win every single one. So it's kind of unfair. It's kind of unfair to put them anywhere, but
I mean, and another place we can put some respect on Avatar here is the CG characters. You know, this has been a decade where we've seen a rise in that, you know, compared to previous decades. You know, we had Scooby, we had King Kong, we have Avatar here. And it is really cool to see the evolution of VFX in a way over the course of it. Like,
question. Which movie did you like visually more, King Kong or Avatar?
I was thinking about this as I was watching it, right? For the love of God, one of these Avatar sequels should be directed by Peter Jackson. And one of them should be directed by Steven Spielberg. But I'd say Avatar was stunning. Just absolutely stunning at points. You know, like the environments they built. But I thought there were more, there was like this, it was obviously fantastical. And so was King Kong. You know, like
more realistic-ish.
You know, it was still jungle and but like the luminescent fields that we see in Avatar here, where they're like every step glows and like that shit was pretty. Like, don't get me wrong, it was gorgeous, but like the certain realism to the feel of what's Skull Island. I said Middle Earth because that's Lord of the Rings, but of Skull Island and King Kong was just it was just really, really, really effective. You know, I think one of the advantages that King Kong has is being able to have one of those CG characters acting opposite a actual live action character, not another CG character. You know, like part of the thing that did ground it in a realism in King Kong was, I mean, King Kong looked like a giant fucking gorilla. Like, I'll say, like, if there was any, I loved the way the avatars looked. I still think King Kong is our most impressive visual feat of this decade in terms of like making it look real and convincing to me. It was just like
another facial capture as well. You know, Andy Serkis doing his thing.
Andy Serkis.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I was kind of there. Like, Avatar, you have these crazy floating mountains and you know, amazing like god trees and home tree that are like
shit was
that are like
gorgeous.
But
like it was.
King Kong had to do that with New York, and like,
I'd say all the creatures King Kong brought to the table on Skull Island, they look a lot more real to me than a lot of the characters Avatar brings to the table. And you know, they had to spend a lot more money on the avatars because those are hard. Like, even as good as they look, it took me a while to get adjusted to recognizing them as looking real. Like their long ass arms were a little awkward to see at times, and it was like and it was never for too long, but there were definitely shots where it was like, that was weird. But they really, really reined it in over the course of the movie. Like, if there's anything this movie fucking nailed, it's visual effects. Like, this shit was gorgeous. It's like, I'm comparing it to King Kong, which is just, I said on that episode, was one of my favorite movies visually ever. So it is hard to say. But yeah, we're only a couple months out now from Avatar: The Way of the Water.
Yeah, I wonder how, like, with the technology we have now, like, because they can't really use the volume is the thing, because you can't. There's still 10-foot tall avatars, you know, like you can't just put in. I don't know. Like, I'm curious on what if they'll still just stick with facial tracking and like still stick with the way they shot the first one, or like.
I think they have this opportunity to not only improve visual effects, but a chance to fix what they did with Sam Worthington's character in terms of like pumping him up as some sort of messianic figure within the Na'vi race. Like, that's
and I guess weird. At the very end he did say like there wasn't a need for man, I keep forgetting the word for like the rider of Toruk. But he's like, there's no need for
Makto. Yeah. Toruk Makto.
Yeah, there you go. There was no need for him anymore. And then you see like Toruk, I guess, fly away like on his own. You know, like, did he like leave him for good? Is he like saying, yeah, is that a thing that can happen? You know, like he already had, you know, the bond with his first one, and like he just kind of jumped onto Toruk and just made it happen. And maybe that was like I don't know. They're, you know, goddess letting it happen because it, you know, needed to happen in order to save the people and everything. But I guess I don't know. I'm very curious on where the second movie will go. If it will be taking, do we know like the plot line at all? Like, do we know if it picks up right for where we left off, or?
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to say. You know, like they've released the cast list and stuff, and fairly certain it's all the same actors. I'm pretty sure Zoe Saldana will be back, and Sam Worthington, and but I'm pretty sure we're bringing on Michelle Yeoh, which is cool. She'll be another doctor.
Oh Lord,
Vin Diesel, Jermaine Clement, yeah, Edie Falco. Man, we got a cool cast for the second one here. I love me some Michelle Yeoh, so I hope she's a much bigger part of what they're about to do. But
Oh, wow. Okay. Jake, Sully, and Natiri have formed a family and are doing everything they can to stay together. However, they must leave their home and explore the regions of Pandora when an ancient threat resurfaces. Oh, the humans come back. I guess, duh. The humans are going to come back with full
Oh
force.
yeah, like
And yeah, duh. I didn't even think about that.
yeah. There's not like they might have stopped this advance, but like they still have all that unobtainium. And as long as they have all those resources, imperialists will try to take them.
And the tree is now gone. They can mine, like it's already gone and over with. So they're going to be like, oh, well, we need to go back. It's all like we already done,
We did the dirty work. We just need to go mine the shit now.
Damn it. I was hoping
it will
was
be interesting though, because it seems like time has passed, given they have a family and they're trying to protect them. Maybe it's like like the unobtainium has already been sort of mined. Like they did that and they avoided that area for as long as they could. And it's like, but who knows? Who knows after all? But, do we be ready for the rating system?
I think I do be ready.
All right, let's. I'm gonna go ahead and go over it again for the folks who might be joining us for the first time. We've kind of just been rolling into the rating section without explanation for like weeks now. So if you've caught on, you've caught on. But I'm gonna go ahead and lay it before you again. We have 3 separate ratings. We have our enjoyment. It's just how much the movie connects with us. How overall are you digging this movie? Completely subjective. However you want to rate it, that's how you rate it. And then how it fulfills its genre. How effectively was it, and this would be an action adventure of sorts. How effectively was this an action adventure sci-fi flick? And I'm assuming that'll do pretty well. But then the last one is critically overall as a film. And that's where we take into account VFX, acting, soundtrack, direction, writing. All of it goes into that rating, and we decide just how good the movie was. We take those 3 ratings, we add them up, divide them by 3, get that average, and that becomes our overall rating for the film. That is the Penny Bloom film rating system. So we usually start with enjoyment. I say we begin here.
And looking at these, the other enjoyment lists, other movies. I mean, I'm thinking I'm above a 4 or 5. I think that's definitely a floor. And I mean, I don't know. Maybe it does just kind of slot in with some other sci-fi movies here.
And James Cameron movies. Aliens and Terminator, both at 4.8 previously. And so as compared to those flicks, how are you feeling about Avatar as far as connection to the story?
I think I can get behind this story a little easier than Aliens and Terminator, actually. It's just kind of like up our alley, like conservationist and science, and like I think
like Sam Worthington says, like they've destroyed their planet. Where we come from, there is no green. It's set in like 2154 or some shit like that. So they're like, yeah, we destroyed Earth.
So I mean, and there's in Aliens, there's like the mother-daughter aspect where it's very, that's where the enjoyment kind of comes, and like the sci-fi stuff is cool. But it's more of like the emotional resonance where I'm going in for that movie. And Terminator, it's kind of just
more the sci-fi.
More the sci-fi there. So I think, I don't know. I think if I'm not above Aliens by a lot, if any. I think it kind of just ties with it, maybe.
All right, I'm cool with that because I think personally I enjoyed Aliens more, but
I enjoy Avatar more than The Breakfast Club and Godfather Part 2, I think.
I can watch this movie pretty casually, pretty easily, and it is these visuals. They are stunning. Like that is something I'll definitely return to this movie for, is just how gorgeous the movie is. So yeah, I think a 4.8 is a fair place for it to slot in at.
All right. Genre wise, I mean,
feels pretty 5 out of 5-y for
feels
sci-fi.
pretty required viewing here. Yeah, if you're talking sci-fi, I mean, it is the top grossing movie of all time, and that shouldn't really matter when it comes to ranking. I mean, it's kind of important to think why it's the top grossing movie of all time. And I think it was just a product of the time. It was a movie that people were blown away by. Like Blu-ray was kind of a new thing. And this was like one of the first movies that I remember people getting in Blu-ray. Because like the sound and the visually it was so amazing. But I really think it was just kind of people saw this in theaters and they were like, oh my God, like the action was very cool. And like we saw a huge war break out in front of us. And the sci-fi aspect was really fun. It was super original. And it was like,
very epic.
Haven't seen like this before.
It was stunning sci-fi stuff. Like as far as sci-fi is concerned, this is alongside like Terminator and Aliens as far as being required science fiction viewing. You got to watch Avatar. Overall, though, critically as a film, this is where I go the weakest with it.
Because the story is kind of where we come back to is kind of the biggest aspect of this rating. No matter how well the performances were, no matter how visually stunning it was, the story, that's what you're watching a movie for, and that's what this movie's being made for in the first place.
Yeah. And I think, the story has the bones to be awesome. I don't think it takes the full leap. I'm going to tell you personally, my ceiling is 4.5.
Yeah, I'm looking at all these movies and I'm like,
as high as I will go. We gave Aliens a 4.3. I'm going to go 4.25.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like it's in bad company. It's with The Breakfast Club and A Clockwork Orange. It's, but yeah, I do think Aliens was executed better as a film, as a story, and that came out long before. It's easy to kind of get distracted by all the visuals and all these things that are happening, but it's the story, that comes down with this rating. That's what is most important. And I feel
it just had some iffy storytelling elements, like there were amazing performances. There's absolutely no doubt there. Zoe Saldana, Sigourney Weaver bodied this shit. The soundtrack rocked. The VFX were stunning. But beyond that,
it's pretty awesome. Average, it's 0.02 below Aliens. Aliens at a 4.7 and Avatar coming in at a 4.68 on
That's
average.
Exactly where you need it.
And yeah, I think that works out pretty perfectly here. I'm comfortable where it is. I think where this movie does shine is in the genre and in the enjoyment rating. If you can kind of get past some of the storytelling, that devices that they're using here, it's just a great movie to put on and watch in the background. You don't have to really pay attention a whole lot. You can come in and out. Yeah, I think I'm comfortable where that's at for sure.
Yeah, I think I am too. And that ultimately shakes out to a 4.68 out of 5, which is still a glowing score, over a 9 out of 10. Very, very impactful movie, and like we've gone over on many occasions, we're pretty loving critics. You gotta fuck up for us to not give you at least a 4 out of 5.
True. Yeah, and I guess in our average, it's ranked number 26, but technically that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, our 14th ranked movie. 26. We have a lot of movies
ties in that top 26.
But I think it's sitting where it's supposed to. All these movies that are above it, I think,
are above it.
Yeah, they definitely are. There's not a movie that is above it that I feel like, oh, maybe Avatar's a little better. Like,
yeah, right.
Yeah, it's below Aliens but above Terminator. Like, and that's
on
average,
where I wanted it.
Yeah, So, I
In
mean,
terms of the James Cameron movies, I think I definitely liked it more than Terminator, but I don't think I liked it quite as much as Aliens. That's exactly where I ended up. So, and the rating reflects it. So I'm glad. I'm happy when shit works out that way. That's always satisfying. But with that, I suppose that concludes this episode of the Penny Bloom Podcast, and thus the decade of the 2000s.
Oh yeah, a 4.77 for this month, which places it 0.01 below the month of July. So it didn't quite beat July. Definitely didn't beat May. But okay,
May
that's
was
awesome.
too strong.
And
May was too strong.
The decade score, let me calculate that up really quick, would be a 4.52. So technically the 90s beat it out. Did have a lot of other movies that went into it. With the week of 1994.
The week afflict.
But I mean, a 4.52 that places it as the second highest decade that we have.
That to me is genuinely shocking.
And I guess the 80s and the 70s, they had Taxi Driver, they had MASH, Spaceballs. Yeah, those will always kind of come back to haunt those months and year and decades. And I think now the movies that we're picking that are from 2000 on, they're all going to be like epic films. There's so many more movies that have been made in these years, and I mean, just looking at the list, like it's hard to get a bad movie whenever you have so much to choose from and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe if maybe we go back and replace Scarface and Spaceballs one day, and see we pick a more critically acclaimed film and see how that shakes it out. But
these things happen the way they happen, and I'm happy. I'm happy with what we've done here. So with that, we conclude the odds, and thus we're on to the tens, baby. We've got very little time left. That's like 13 movies.
Yeah.
We've only got 13 weeks left in the year, buddy, and I'm very, very excited. The 2010s have so much fun and so much heartbreak, and somehow heartbreak feels good in a place like this, in these films. But yeah, with that, we conclude this episode of the Penny Bloom Podcast. If you would, head to patreon.com/CoroBloom, where you'll find over 24 hours of exclusive content. All that money goes back into making sure I can put this podcast on. So that's a huge help. If you would, head to Twitter, follow @PennyBloomPod, where if our movie for the next week is to change. Right now we're kicking off the 2010s with 2010's Inception. Christopher Nolan, Leonardo DiCaprio, all the big uns there. It'll be a fun way to kick off the 2010s. And if that's to change, it won't. But if that's to change, it will be on Twitter. You'll find that @PennyBloomPod. Follow on Instagram @PennyBloomPodcast. If you're fucking with me and Joe, currently, we're covering House of the Dragon on Mondays. Those episodes are coming out. Loving that Game of Thrones content right now. You know how it is. House of the Dragon ongoing. That'll be on Mondays. And because we have Mondays occupied right now, our decade awards for the 2010s or the 2000s, my bad, will be next Wednesday. We'll reflect on all of these epic films we saw from the aughts. In that episode, hand out our awards for best actors and actresses, supporting actors and actresses, writers, directors, soundtrack, all that, and all the fun shit from our previous decade awards. It'll all be there. That's next Wednesday, the 2000s Decades Awards. But yeah, with that, I was Colton Robertson. I was joined by Joseph George. Thank you very much, homie.
Well, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Oh, and it is always a pleasure to have you. Remember, peace, love, and bloom. And I see you.
Thank you.